Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review Carry On. And this is a new action thriller coming to you on Netflix from Collet-Serra, and who had previously done films such as The Unknown, Orphan, The Shallows, The Commuter. So it certainly has that experience in terms of genre filmmaking, action thrillers, mysteries and such, and this film focuses on a young TSA agent played by Taron Egerton who winds up convincing his supervisor, Dean Norris, to let him be in the seat, checking the bags and stuff like that through the machines on Christmas Day flight. And what winds up happening is this strange, mysterious person winds up talking to him through an earpiece, played by Jason Bateman, who winds up trying to get him to let this mysterious package through. And that's kind of the crux of the film. It gets much more complicated, convoluted, and ridiculous from there. Because this is a grand conspiracy, there's a lot of moving pieces, and it just gets less and less believable as the film goes on. It's hard to not compare this and think about films like Die Hard and stuff like that, because it definitely has that kind of vibe. You have these parallel stories because you have Egerton's Ethan, who's in the seat, has the earpiece, going through all these challenging things. He's being blackmailed to go against all of his moral fiber and all of his beliefs and do some horrible things to his friends, and certain things happen to some of his friends. He has his pregnant girlfriend, played by Sophia Carson, who's in danger. And there's the tension, this is the story. And then there's this whole parallel story about Danielle Deadwyler's agent who's investigating this seemingly unconnected story that, of course, winds up connecting to our story, but just feels very tacked on and not particularly interesting. And every time the film cuts to that part of the story, it feels like a distraction. And this film's like a 2-hour film, and it does start feeling long and feels like it's elongating and just stretching thin this concept. The first half of the film really moves. It's engaging, it's pulling you in, and then it kind of just goes a little off the rails, gets too convoluted. And there's some interesting set pieces, and Collet-Serra really tries to show off some of his technical prowess, his work as a director. You have cinematographer Lyle Vincent and how they craft this camera work. Probably the most interesting piece of Deadwyler being in this film, who's an extremely talented actor and is kind of just wasted in this, but there's this whole entire fight within a car, and if the CGI on the outside of the car was a little bit better, a little bit more realistic, this would have been a crazy all-timer kind of action sequence, especially this year. But that's the thing, because you could tell there's some limitations in terms of the budget, and anytime it tries to really use visual effects, you can see right through it. You have this whole entire sequence in the baggage tread, and when you are an action thriller and you can't do a better action sequence than Toy Story 2 inside an airport baggage facility, that's a little bit of a knock for you, isn't it? And this film, I feel has such an interesting idea. And I think Taron Egerton does a really fine job here. It's not his strongest performance, but he's pulling his weight. You have Deadwyler, who's underutilized. You have Theo Rossi, who's extremely underutilized. Dean Norris does a fine job in supporting. And you have Jason Bateman, who is so charismatic and so great. And they're really leaning on this particular actor to really sell the villain. And you have somebody like Jason Bateman, who is really charismatic and does his best with this very underwhelming, underwritten antagonist. His motivation is just so blah. But, just hearing Jason Bateman being a judgmental jerk throughout the whole entire movie, just negging Egerton's character. It's amusing enough, and I'm pretty sure they were banking on that. But as you pull it all together, this is a pretty underwhelming and solid kind of action thriller. It's 'tis the season, I guess. Like, it starts with it's Christmas music during like the opening logos and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, I didn't really know much about the film going, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting, and then like kind of like shirks away from any kind of Christmas elements at all. It's just like, oh, so they just teased us at the beginning. But at the end of the day, I feel like this is a solid film that if you're in for an action thriller and you really like that kind of genre, and you don't need a whole lot of layers and stuff like that and extra things, but outside of there's some thrills, there's some mystery about this. It's right there on Netflix, so it's there to stream. So check it out. But those are my thoughts on Carry On. Let me know what you think, and let's talk some movies. But thank you as always for tuning in and supporting your Wasteland reviewer.